We just did all the works on scope management. Now it's time for us to understand and start the scheduling process. We need to understand and start. Okay, what do I need to do to make sure that this work here will be done on the time frame I have for the project? And the first one is plan, schedule, management. And before I put the plan, schedule, management here in the position, let's put on the side here. Take a look on both. It's crazy, isn't it? They are basically the same. This for scope, for the work, this for schedule. So take a look on how do we plan schedule management. We take the project charter, the project management plan, the development approach, enterprise organization of process assets. We use expert judgment, we analyze data, we do meetings. What do we produce? We update the schedule management plan. And we understand, okay, what is a delay? A delay is 1 day, 1 hour, or 1 week. It depends. It depends on what is inside your schedule management plan. If your schedule management plan is saying that your project is late, if it's 1 day delayed, that's it. Red flag. So this, and what is super important, I said you to put something in your mind. Now I want just to retrieve that information. Plan scope, plan schedule, then you'll see plan finance, you'll see plan risk, you'll see plan for everything. Every first step of the planning of everything we'll do is plan, management. Is the management of the planning of something. And what is something? Scope, schedule, finance, stakeholder, resource, and risks. So now I'm creating imagine that you have a game to play. You are creating the rule of the game here, and then the rule of the game here. Here, the rule related to the scope, the work, and here the rule related to the schedule. So basically, you will produce an updated schedule management plan. So you'll have, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. And this will allow me to go to the next one. And please, don't be afraid with the size. It's really big, but it's very easy, okay? It's really big, okay? When I saw this for the first time, I was scared too, but let's go through it. Let's go through it, okay? So schedule management plan and develop schedule. What I want here, it's obviously, I want to develop a schedule. I want to know what is the timeline. Imagine like a Gantt chart. I want to know what is my timeline. I will deliver it, this work, in a week, in a month, in a year. Basically, I need the project charter, the scope management plan. Why I need the scope management plan? Because I need to know the work that I need to do and how the work can be changed. I need the development approach. Development approaches, are you using Agile? Are you using hybrid? Are you using predictive? Because depending on your development approach, this will be different. If you are using Agile, you expect to have a product or a release or something that delivers value to your client in 2 weeks in general. But for example, if you are building, I would say, an airport, you cannot do that, right? You cannot say, okay, our tower of control is not ready yet, but let's start taking off planes. So you don't do that. So it depends on your development approach. So your development approach, and then project documents. Oh God, these all project documents. The attributes of the activities you need to do, the list of activities, your assumptions here that you are basing this project, the basis of estimate. For example, if you are estimating something, I'm taking 10 hours to do this 10 square feet area. It means that the basis of estimate is 1 hour per square feet. It's parametric modeling, for example. What is the basis of your estimate? The duration estimates. You are estimating the duration of the work. Lessons learned register. For example, what you learned. Milestone list, the main milestones of your project. The network diagram, or vulgarly called in the past the PERT chart. Your network. Resource calendar. For example, if someone is on leave, on holidays, and this. So you need all of this to develop your schedule. Resource requirement. For example, if you have 10 people to paint this wall, it's different than if you have one, right? If you have one, because most of the tasks, they are considered effort-driven. It means that you add resource, you reduce the duration. It means that the relationship between the duration and the number of resources is very relevant. Of course, it's not for all projects. I cannot say that, for example, 9 women will expect for a baby in a month. Okay, so this is very important. Then I need to have agreements. For example, is there any date that is defined in an agreement? I need to know. Enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets again. Then tools and techniques that I need. Expert judgment. Did you see expert judgment is pretty much everywhere? So your judgment. Decomposition, as we did here for the scope, we are doing here for the time. Rolling wave planning. What is rolling wave planning? Rolling wave planning is when you plan more detailed actions in the short term and less detailed actions in the long term. Why you do that? Because on the rolling wave, it's like you on the beach, looking through the waves. The waves that are close to you, you know much more in detail. But the waves that are far away from you, you don't see that, right? You see as a line in the horizon. So this is the concept of rolling wave planning. Most of the time, if your project is 3 years, you don't detail your schedule up to hours 3 years from now. But you detail in hours what you do tomorrow, for example. This is the concept of rolling wave planning. Precedent diagram method is the PERT method, is when you calculate the critical path, everything. Logical relationships is if something happens, then you go to this path. If something happens, then you go to another path. If the product is late, then you do these tasks. If the product is on time, then do other tasks. This is logical. It's when you insert risks to your schedule. Leads and lags. For example, sometimes I have a lead time. I put buffers or I put superposition on tasks. And this will, of course, impact. If I do like this, or if I do like this, and I put an overlap, this is task A and this is task B. If I put an overlap on these tasks, of course, I'm saving time if these tasks are on the critical path. However, I'm adding risks. So I need to use this type of technique depending on the case. Dependency determination and integration. I need to understand who depends on what. For example, to paint the wall, you need to build the wall. So you need to know which are the predecessors and which are the successors. Then, after that, estimative techniques. So you need to use estimative. As I mentioned 2 minutes ago, parametric modeling is a perfect example of that. So for example, you calculate the square meter of something, and then you multiply that cost, or that, in this case, the time, times the size of the room. And then you calculate the time you need for that. This is one example. Okay? Reserve analysis. This is very close to the leads and lags. So you have a reserve and you understand how much time do I need to put on reserve to protect my path. Is it 3 days? Is it 10 days? Data analysis. What if scenario that is extremely connected to this logical relationship. What if? What if something happens? Then I use simulation. I can use Monte Carlo simulation, for example, using optimistic duration, most likely duration, and pessimistic duration. And then I have a bell curve saying there is 95% of probability that I will finish this project before that time. And let me stop here. These techniques, I'm not saying you need to use all of them. These are the most common you need to do, okay? Voting, okay? Who supports 10 days, 8 days? It's not very usual, but people can do. Schedule network analysis. So you analyze the network to see the weak links, and then you try to protect these weak links. Critical path method, the CPM method, that is very close. This is why we call PERT CPM in the past. We used to call that. The critical path, so you do the forward path, the backward path, and you calculate in terms of time which tasks are the critical ones. Then we have critical chain method. This is a very unique method where you use the theory of constraints and you calculate your critical chain and you protect your critical chain in the best possible way using buffers to make sure that your chain will not be changed. And this is a topic, honestly speaking, for a whole course that is above and beyond the PMBOK. If you want to know more about that, there is a book called Critical Chain Project Management, and the author is Lawrence Leach, and it's a great, and of course, if you want to read about the whole concept, there is, I would say, one of the most important books in management, that it's the book of Elianu Goldratt called The Goal, that talks about critical chain, okay? Resource optimization, for example, resource leveling. For example, if you are using more resources today, what do? You delay and you do like a leveling, resource leveling, to make sure that you do not over-allocate any resource. Then, project management information system. This is PM software. This is Primavera. This is Microsoft Project. This is any software. This is Monte. This is Asana. This is any software that you use to support this. Because of course, honestly speaking, you don't do this by hand. You use software. And the software does pretty much everything we are talking here. Okay? And agile release planning. So you do an agile release planning, for example, to understand what is your plan to release in the next sprint. So you do all these. This is very much related to scale agile components, etc. So what do you produce? Schedule baseline, project schedule, so the scheduling of the project, the data of the schedule, calendars, change requests. Why? Because when you do this, you may see, okay, I put the deadline was 31st December 2031, and based on my schedule is December 31st 2035. So I'm 4 years late. There is no way I can do that. So what do? You ask for a change. Maybe I need to reduce the scope. Maybe I need to extend time. Maybe I need more money. But if you do not change, it will be impossible. This is why you ask for change here. Okay? Then you update the plan. You update all the documentation. And basically, this documentation here is the documentation you receive to do that. So when you do that and you update, maybe if it's everything okay, you don't need to update anything, but you may need to update everything. This is our 2 process of schedule. I know this is long, but this is not hard to understand. This is everything you need to do to really put the work in a reliable timeline.